Welcome to Mac and Blue, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. Now let's join our hosts, Robert Johnson and JJ Levensky, aka Mac and Blue.
Welcome to Mac and Blue. I'm Robert Johnson, Vice President of Business Development. He being the other handsome gentleman there, is the president of Blue Wave General Contracting. What's up, JJ?
Everything's up, right? It's Monday. We're happy. We're vertical. We're virtual. And Uncle Daryl's on the other line, too.
And I know Daryl can say hi. Greet us, Daryl.
Hello, gentlemen. How's it going?
It's going good. Good job so far, Daryl. Not one mistake. We are 45 seconds into it, but yeah, good job. So we're doing something a little different this week. We are going to talk about our sponsors, that being Torrey Contracting and Blue Wave General Contracting. And I'm going to dive into this. Hey, JJ, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your company does and who you are?
Well, I was going to laugh. First of all, I said our sponsors, our employers, our second wives, what do we want to call our company?
Oh, right? Man. Yeah, that is the truth.
Where we spend 90% of our time. No, thanks, Robert. So yeah, it'll be fun today. And for the audience, I mean, full disclosure, this wasn't planned, but we always had this as a backup we did have a guest that canceled today, which is going to happen every now and then. And so we thought it appropriate that we should, what are we now, 5 months in, somewhere in there?
Yeah, something like that, pretty close.
5 months in, and we've never really done a deep dive on our respective companies. And so today was appropriate for that. So keep a timer on me, and we'll go down that path. So yes, Blue Wave General Contracting. I had to actually double check to find out how long we've been in business. That's how bad it is. We started in the winter, or right in the transition between 2016 and 2017. And at that time, we were actually School Builder. And when we first started School Builder, we were predominantly just in that space, building schools and specifically charter schools. And after about a year and a half or into year two after that, we realized that it was a little bit myopic in our vision and what we were doing for other verticals and other clients. So we changed the name to Blue Wave General Contracting. Now, we always get the question is where did the name come from? And Blue Wave General Contracting came based on the book Blue Ocean Strategy. I'm not going to give away the secrets, but for those of you that read and like business books, leadership books, all those kind of things, if you would look up Blue Ocean Strategy or the Blue Ocean Strategy, and you'll see what that's all about. And we felt that our ethos and our methodology matched the message of that book quite well. And it basically was, how do you always try to add value to your clients in some way that you can monetize and bring that value prop to fruition for your clients. So then that signifies the name, now the spelling. So this is where it gets kind of fun. Everyone goes, well, why can't you spell JJ? I'm like, well, the answer is yes and no. I am Polish after all, so it is challenging for me at times.
Wow. You beat me to it.
Well, here, to put it in perspective, look at my last name, Lewinsky. I can't even spell a Polish name correctly. I mean, give me a break. So, truth be told, when we looked at all the domains, trademarks, everything with Blue Wave, the BLUE was taken. So we took a leap of faith and said, well, do we take the French spelling of blue? And we did it. And I'm not going to lie, for the first 6 to 8 weeks of being in business as Blue Wave with the BLEU, it was horrible. No one could find us. No emails got to us. It was horrible. Now it's been into almost like a marketing, like a stroke of dumb luck turns genius, because everyone asks, well, why is the spelling? So I get to tell the story about our company. So it's kind of fun from that aspect.
Good.
So the the evolution in those 5.5 years, or we're into year 6 of the business, was much like everyone. We survived COVID, came out of it stronger than everything. But primarily, we still were playing in the charter school space quite frequently, and then we started servicing other verticals. We also found a niche in kind of doing a horizontal mix, where when I look at our staff, we're not a young staff, we're a fairly senior staff. I think we were able to attract a lot of project managers, superintendents who were, I wouldn't say burnt out, but tired of more the larger corporate environment. And I offered something a little bit more open, and offered a little less stringent structure, and allowed builders to be builders. And what that allowed us to do was have a staff that had a more national presence, which means they have a broader background, which allowed integration of more horizontal than just vertical on what I would typically see in Arizona. When I moved here almost 10 years ago, I was shocked that a lot of general contractors that there was a difference, and I mean a distinct difference between vertical and horizontal. Where I was raised, if you're a general contractor, you did everything, and
Right.
that's how you were raised. And I know, Robert, you and I have talked about this a lot, and so that was where we were able to kind of work for developers and kind of come in and do a mixed breed of both horizontal and vertical, because we had that background. I kind of joked that our average age in the company is probably closer to 50 than it is to 30. But with that, I think we get a nice tenured background of our staff. And there's days that I miss having a lot of the younger people around to mentor, but just in the life cycle of where we are in our own economic cycle here in Arizona, we've just fallen into that mix, and it's proven well for us and for our client base. So,
Interesting.
yeah, so that's a little background on Blue Wave. Robert, where should we go ahead?
You started in, you talked about you were primarily in the charter school sector.
Yep.
But although you are in the process of finishing up a charter school, a very large one, you're doing a couple of other interesting projects that are very far from being charter school type projects.
Correct.
And how did you make that jump?
Great question. So it's hard. I'm trying to give the Reader's Digest version because it'd take an hour to explain the whole thing. I think it comes back to when we were transitioning from School Builder to Blue Wave. There was a period there where I was able to meet and get introduced to many of the key people in the Valley that were in the capital stack. And I would call it the deal makers and the deal, you know what I'm talking about.
The movers and shakers.
The movers and shakers. And that's when I realized, as a transplant to Phoenix, I realized that Phoenix is, we say this all the time on the podcast, Robert, it's America's largest small town, or the smallest large town, either way you want to transpose that. And I always tell people that I luckily, without mentioning names, I owe a gratitude to someone that I worked with during that tenure who exposed me to all of these people. It probably would have taken me 20 years of organic business development to meet all those people in a conventional time frame. He was able to do it in 8 months, where every vice president, president of a bank or whatever, the commercial real estate people. And it was, I'm very thankful and humbled by that experience. What happened was a few years later, because we went down that path, a lot of that stuff didn't come to fruition. So to be very honest, we had what I call a sophomore slump. Okay.
Sure.
Where we tried to go down a path of our business plan that failed and failed pretty considerably. But it wasn't because of who we stood for as people or what we were trying to do. We just kind of bit off more than we could chew because we had opportunities. And again, without going into a lot of details, it was basically like an equity play of very large projects. It didn't work out, but I was able to meet a lot of influential people. And during that time, I was also able to put what I would call, your business development guy, Robert, so you can appreciate this. I was able to put myself in front of a lot of these people at a boardroom or a virtual room where they saw how my mind works and what my team does, as far as putting together what I call pre-construction services that weren't normal for most general contractors. And what that means is it really dove into a lot more of the pro forma, looking at different asset classes, and thinking more like an owner than a general contractor. In other words, speak their language, speak a commercial real estate person's language, think of it as an investor. And so what happened was my name or our name started getting out there that, hey, there's this smaller GC that can talk the talk and walk the walk, but you probably don't know about them. And yet, if you look at them, their resume speaks volumes of who they are. They've only been around for a couple of years, but when you look at the individuals that comprise the Blue Wave team, that's a pretty high horsepower team, and they know what they're talking about. So then that's, Robert, to answer your question, how my phone or how our phone started ringing again, and I'm just thankful to it. So, we were lucky to do the Verde Cooley Station, which is a 12 building, multi-acre, multi-use development in Gilbert. And then the big one that we currently got and are working on is the Cannon Beach Surf Park, which put us at a whole nother level in our peer group. And again, that was just I can tell you the condensed story of that one was we were competing against some rather large firms, and it was kind of a mistake of how it happened, but we were able to interview with them and we crushed it, and that was it. But a lot of it goes back to what I was talking about was we have a very tenured staff that has a lot of world experience, and by giving them the freedom and the autonomy to do what they want to do, which is being a builder, which we don't talk about that much in our industry anymore, is
right.
Are you a project manager? Are you senior this? Or we get into titles, but I look at are we really builders anymore? And
No.
You show me a builder and I'll hire that person. And our clients love builders because they're problem solvers, right?
Right. Makes all the difference.
Versus I realize that through supply and demand right now, there's a lot of people in the industry that they didn't have the experience that you and I did, Robert, of, where you learned under your grandfather and then your father, and then, someone gave you a chance when you were 18 to 25 years old. And if you jumped at it, you jumped at it. Now there's so many more layers than what you and I had to deal with. Right. And I look at it and I would if I could go back and change it, I won't change a thing. I'm so glad that, they threw me to the wolves when I was younger. And did I fail? Oh my God, did we all fail, right?
But, yeah, just a couple times.
But the thing is, I think it gives us an advantage now that those failures are not. I sleep at night. So do you. We don't live in fear of the failures because we weren't protected by all these layers. And I'm not talking about, this may come across wrong, but not helicopter parents, but helicopter organizations.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, we need processes and procedures, but at the same token, you've got to allow these young people to fail as well in their maturation and cycle of running construction projects. So anyway, that's a little of that.
The peeling the onion there a little bit gives a bit of insight into what makes Blue Wave what they are, and it's a different company. You'll admit that it's structured different. It goes about things differently, but you're working on a couple of projects, specifically Cannon Beach. Companies, there's general contractors that are in business for years and years and years and never get a shot like Cannon Beach.
True. And we're very thankful of that. And it's turned into, not only is it a wonderful project, it's turned into a wonderful relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress it enough that if you go to the construction trailer any day of the week and see the synergy and the camaraderie between ownership, consultants, us as a GC, all of our trade partners, it is the most collegial environment I've seen in many years, to be honest with you.
And that's rare, because I've seen them, what I would consider the norm, and it's far from that typically.
Well, and shout out, I mean, we Robert and Daryl, we had Cole Cannon on as a guest, what was it, a month or so ago. Mm-hmm. And, it starts with him. I mean, he's the main partner, the main equity, the main brainchild behind all this. And he's got some wonderful partners too. But I think he sets the tone with his attitude. And it just so happens that everyone else on that project has followed suit. So I think it's a testament to our industry that you don't have to be all hard and rigid and just, how do I describe it? So legalese The irony is Cole is an attorney, so there you go.
Right.
And yet, probably one of the loosest but yet well-managed projects we've ever been on because of that. In other words, we're not focused on the CYA. We're focused on the solutions day in and day out. And don't kid yourself. There's so much proprietary technology that's going into this project that if we had to wait for CDs to be done and built, it would never get built. So all the parties are taking risk, but a joint risk and a calculated risk where we talk about it all the time. And then luckily we're able to present it to the ownership group, and they can make then a educated decision. And then we go. And guess what? There are mistakes that are made, but he's willing to write the check for him to keep things moving, which is a big difference in our industry. So the takeaways from that one for me right now are in the environment that we're in, Robert, is, for someone or some organization that likes the security and the sureness of having everything dotted, I's dotted, T's crossed, that isn't my team and it's not our team. And I think that's why that particular project and us match so well. Whereas the conventional means and methods of delivering construction, there's tons of companies out there that do that really, really, really well. And we could too, but that's not what gets my people out of bed in the morning. So I've had to strategically make sure that Blue Wave is situated that I wouldn't say we strive or look for the more difficult jobs, but it's funny when my phone rings, it usually goes something like this: "Hey, our GC couldn't think beyond this. Can you look at it a different way?" And with my crazy brain, the way it works, a lot of times I'll be like, "Well, did you think about this, this, and this?" And they're like, "Oh, well, no one's ever asked us those questions before." Okay, well, now I'm not saying it always works,
right?
But it just seems like our hit rate on that kind of scenario is much higher than I would call it a conventional and a normally layered construction company. So,
yeah, very. One of the most exciting things that I think there is, and this you kind of described it this way, it is you're actually building the plane while it's in the air, which is really exciting.
While getting parts drop shipped from China in the middle of it.
Exactly, and that's very close to being the truth.
Well, and let's be honest, our whole industry is dealing with that to a certain degree too. But anyway,
I agree.
I digress.
Yep. So, hey, Daryl, why don't you throw us to a commercial? When we come back, we'll toss it to JJ and turn the tables.
Torrey Contracting, your full-service Division 9 contractor. Torrey Contracting operates with a smaller, hands-on team. This cohesive structure results in superior workmanship and economical solutions. We deliver projects with unsurpassed commitment to quality and stewardship of budget. Torrey Contracting, small enough to listen, big enough to deliver.
Okay,
hey,
Tag, you're it.
Hold on, I was looking at the time. I do want to. I would be doing an injustice to my team if I didn't say the last part of Blue Wave, which was earlier this year. Robert, you know this, and Daryl, you do too. But for the audience, we decided that we wanted to add even more value to our customer base.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we launched our service divisions of Blue Wave HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and handyman. And to be 100% transparent, we approached all of our trade partners prior to doing that saying, listen, this isn't to steal work away and self-perform everything. It was a little bit different. We wanted to build it, to build our enterprise value on two platforms. One, to actually take care of our clients, but B, was also to increase our balance sheet, right? And our blended EBITDA, because just being a general contractor, for those of you that know this, we're not getting rich off of doing construction projects. And so it was important that we had a diversified kind of portfolio, if you will.
Right.
And so we launched all of those a couple months ago, and it has turned into, I've been very excited, very humbled, pleasantly surprised by all of it. Like anything, there's growing pains, but I'm loving seeing the positive things coming out of it versus the negative. I mean, the positives outweigh the negatives 90 to 10 easily. And so The irony is we focused in verticals that we normally don't play in. So like on the HVAC side, we're doing tons of service work in the residential area. We are not residential builders, but yet at the same token, in there we have commercial guys that are taking care of like our past school clients, which is something we could never offer before. It was so hard to hand over our product and then not be able to handle the maintenance and warranty. And two things: one, we can better protect it, but B, we can also monetize it for our own good. I mean, that's why we're in business, is to make money. So it's been a very nice mix. So I'm very excited to share that with the general public. We've kept it pretty quiet. We have the vans all over the valley, but we'll slowly be launching it on a lot of our social media. We've just been slow to react to it, but yeah, very excited to share that we launched basically 4 service divisions to take care of both of our clients and, quite honestly, our employees to offer a better and more diversified workforce. So,
The service business is so different from the construction business,
yes.
is it not? Boy.
Yep. I mean, and having the staff and the senior leadership underneath me to identify it, cultivate that talent. It still goes back to what we're trying to do from a cultural standpoint, as far as what the Blue Wave culture means.
Mm-hmm.
I think it augments and even strengthens it. It's almost like raising it to the nth power, because now you have the commercial new build people meeting the service side. And let's be honest, that kind of diversification only strengthens the workforce and kind of the accountability too, Robert. So
yeah.
All right.
Wisdom.
So thanks for the tidbit. Happy to finally share a little bit about Blue Wave. Now, back to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Robert Johnson. Yeah, that's you. Well, every time you tell me a story, you've been in construction like 142 years, so I think you just get an honorary doctorate of construction.
No, I've been accused of that. It's like, if you've done everything that you said you've done, you would be 142 years old. I do feel like that. I've done, wow, if I started getting into it, not even construction wise, I have some great funeral home stories.
Which I've heard, by the way.
Yeah.
In the history teacher, right?
American history. Yeah. Algebra, high school algebra. Yeah. So that's supposed to make me sound very smart, but textbooks is what teach. I just sit there and tell them, open your book, read that, do it. But
tell us about and educate the audience about your. It's all happened in the last half of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Your move to Tory and
Mm-hmm.
what Tory stands for.
Yeah. So most of the listeners that were with us from the beginning know that I was previously with a company based in Phoenix, Mac Prefab. And they were a Division 9, still are a Division 9 contractor, primary metal stud, framing, drywall. And Matt Cormier, who is the owner, wanted to get into the prefab business, starting to really blow up, and started buying equipment and moving that direction and building load-bearing multi-story structures, mid-rise, 4 to 7 story buildings. May of this year, I believe it was, I was very fortunate to make a move to Tory Contracting folks that are based in beautiful Las Vegas, where I am today. Drove here last night, got in at 2:00 in the morning. I am a diehard, and I feel like I've died hard. But Tory, I've never asked this question, but I looked it up some time back. That's what I was digging through when you started going into your whole explanation of Blue Wave. I didn't think about it until then, but I had written it down shortly after I started about what Tory was. And I found out that Tory is used in Japanese martial arts to refer to the executor of a technique. And
I'm glad. Hold it right there. I got a call. I'm glad there was a hyphen or a comma or a semicolon there, technique, because it was just executioner. I was like, oh, cool. We're going down to some deep stuff now, Robert.
Yeah, so they were an executioner. Yeah, I should have left it there, and this would have really turned in really cool.
Daryl would have had the mic dropping out the studio.
Yeah, it would have gone black. So Tori basically is the principle that a Tori is always the one who successfully completes a technique. So when you apply that to what we are, and Tori, for the last 8 to 12 years, has been a Division 9 contractor, drywall, metal studs, primarily. For the majority of that time was the in-house firm for Forte design and building. And Forte is a builder of luxury homes here in Las Vegas and in Southern California currently. So
are they the same company, or are you sister companies, or how
yeah, really, I mean, I would say parent company, but that's really not even true. So we just live, we coexist in the same building, same ownership group, let's put it that way.
Okay.
So Tori also went out to help there and to kind of fortify their luxury home building division or business. They purchased a very large, at the time, it was the largest FrameCAD machine that FrameCAD makes. That will turn anywhere from a 3 5/8 inch metal stud to a 12-inch stud, anywhere from 14 gauge to 20 gauge. Construction people will get all that. Daryl will explain later. And it was to build these luxury homes. They realized very quickly that that's not really what these machines are made for. They're made for load-bearing partition systems primarily. They'll do away with an awful lot of structural steel, and the speed with which projects can get built now, utilizing a prefab offsite construction method, is astounding, because what's happening now, we have designers on staff, we have engineers that will engineer the project, work with an engineer of record, and engineer the cold form steel portion. And we have FrameCAD designers that will design the wall panels and trusses. Our equipment then prints the components. I say print, it's strange, but it's a roll former. So we purchase coils of steel, galvanized steel, at the various gauges, and it rolls through the machine and forms it into what is typically known as a C-stud profile. Those components are then screwed together. They're fabricated in a shop where the weather is not going to stop us. It's temperature controlled. It's, there's the quality control is much greater. So we're doing probably 60% of a framing job in a very controlled environment while the site work and while the slab is being done. So once a slab is done, we can show up with truckloads of our goal is always to have at least 2 to 3 floors completely fabricated by the time we start on a project, which means that then our installation crew starts installing while our fabrication crew is still fabricating roof trusses, floor trusses, and continuing to send those out as we go through. So
Robert,
yes.
What so other than working for Forte, right? Mm-hmm. What are the other verticals, for the audience sake? Where do you target this to? I mean, I'm setting you up for.
Yeah, it's a softball. I saw it. I reared back and was about to crunch that dude. Yeah. So the perfect job, the perfect project for our system is anything that is a mid-rise stackable structure. So a multifamily, an apartment building, an assisted living facility. Assisted living facilities, even more so than multifamily and hospitality, the hotels, in that senior living has to be a non-combustible structure to begin with. And of course, cold form steel is non-combustible. In the multifamily and the hospitality sectors, the majority of what I see out here, and I say out here being west of the Rockies, is a conversion. We're being asked to work on a conversion from wood framing to light gauge steel, primarily because it's just so relatively new in the Western United States. It's very prevalent in South America. The East Coast has been doing it in all shapes and forms for several years. Australia, if anybody looks up residential building in Australia, primarily all residential building is light gauge steel. So over in the Middle East, the military uses it. They have these roll forming machines that fit into containers, shipping containers. They'll drop them with helicopter out in the middle of a desert somewhere and generator them up and spit out building components and build these things anywhere. So the benefits are this. For those in the pre-construction world, people tend to look at things on a line item basis. So when we come in to talk to people when we talk to a general contractor, let's say, about a conversion from wood to steel, I get the shaking of the head instantly, is that light gauge steel has always been more expensive than wood. True, and it still is. The difference is that, number one, if you...
Hey, Robert?
Yes.
But percentage-wise, what is it really different? Just on the commodity side.
I don't know weight wise, but when like lumber's way down, steel's way down, I'm going to say it used to be 20%. That 20% was the number, but it's closer than that now.
Yeah.
I would say it's in that 10 to 20%.
Okay. But now give the offsetting sales technique here.
Sure. So the win is that when you convert a wood structure to a non-combustible structure, there is a piece of insurance called builder's risk insurance that general contractors will take out to protect their project during construction. We built a 125,000 square foot, 5-story structure down in Tucson, Arizona. The change in the builder's risk, the delta in the builder's risk from wood to steel was a $225,000 savings. So it's substantial. The other thing is for those folks, those owners and developers that build and hold, and really it pertains regardless, but it's more of a benefit for the build and hold, is there's also an approximate 20% annual savings in your ongoing property insurance. I was just at a conference called the Lodging Conference in Scottsdale last week, and I had a gentleman that was sitting across from me, and I've said that once, gave that whole speech, and when I got to the 20% annually in savings in general ongoing property insurance, he goes, "That is a huge number." He says, "If I didn't do anything else, that number makes it make sense for me." So when you go from a line item analysis to a pro forma analysis, which is what owners and developers are typically using, it gets that percentage even closer. I think it's still a little bit higher, but then we have one more, and that's speed of construction. Because we can do that 50 to 60% of the framing job while you're out doing dirt work and preparing a slab. The construction, on-site construction, is extremely fast. So we have the potential of greatly shortening the schedules, construction schedules, significantly, in some cases 6 to 8 weeks. You know that I've mentioned this on our podcast. I've mentioned it to you most certainly. One of the one of the pieces that I have really worked quite hard on the last, this year, is finding those subcontractors, those MEP, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing subcontractors that are also willing to do prefab construction. Because if I build a structure and I blow through that thing in record time, and all the other subcontractors are still going about their business as they always have, I can get the structure done much faster, but still not going to be completed any quicker because everybody else is not moving any faster. So,
But isn't that, Robert? Isn't there also some education? If I put my shoes back on here, and I say, all right, project manager, superintendent, my team that's building the CPM, which is your critical path schedule. You guys at the pre-con have to educate the GC of accelerating that too, right? I mean, it comes
absolutely.
up to communication and dissemination of information. So
yeah, one of the really big changes and the big differences is, so for us, I'll kind of change this a little bit, segue into this. It's really best for us to start the conversation with the owner and developer before they spend the money having it designed as a wood framed building. The major reasons for that is that because it's a load bearing partition system, your plumbing, anything that's coming out of your plumbing risers, anything coming out of your slab, all has to be dialed in, which means that BIM is a huge piece of this. So in the perfect world, we would actually create the model based on a floor plan that was done by the architect. We would do that in Revit, and we would distribute that model back to the architect to be distributed to the MEP consultants. Now they're doing all of their design based on where every framing member is going to be. And that's how exact the system is. When we put it into a design, that's what's fed into our machine, and that's exactly what's built to within a 1/16 of an inch. It's pretty incredible stuff, actually. Now, you're actually using some prefab panels on Cannon Beach now, aren't you?
Yeah, because we're for the audience's sake, we're engaged with Mac Prefab and Executive West, where you used to work.
Correct.
And so, yeah, there are trade partners out on that one, and we've seen the benefits for a long time. And this isn't new. It's just what's the familiarity and the comfort level of every. And it's not the GC; it's more the owner and the architect.
Absolutely is.
It's easy for us to sell when we're in early. When we're in later, then you're back to the stereotypes and the paradigms of a long time ago, which should be, we'll talk about that later. Hey, Daryl, if you don't mind, let's take a quick commercial break and let's come back and ping Robert for some more questions.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
So there's a couple things I got to jump in here about.
Okay, go ahead. And then I got some questions for you too.
Okay. So there's a couple of other things that when we can get in early can add to the massive changes. And again, all of this just brings us closer and closer to the price, that magic price of doing it for the same thing that they've been doing for years, which is wood. Our light gauge steel structures, although they are a load bearing structure, are lighter in weight than a wood structure. What that means is that if we can get in early, it also means that your your slab, there can be some significant steel reductions in slab. Footing sizes can be smaller, which means less concrete. Another one that is huge, which you don't realize it until a project starts. Anybody that has seen an apartment complex, a multifamily project, begin or start or being framed, or even in a single family home subdivision, drive through that thing and look at the amount of waste and it's piles and piles and truckloads full of waste. When we start a project, we don't even have a dumpster on site for the first 2 or 3 months because everything's done off site. We don't cut anything, so we don't have anything to throw away. So while we're framing the job, you're not having to just circle, lifts of trucks of containers of your dumpsters in and out of that place, because we're not doing anything to fill them up. So when you again dial into all these things and factor in, we can do things by eliminating the need for lightweight concrete between floors. There's all kinds of things that we can do if we really get creative and work with an owner early on.
I think I'm going to bring up two other ones that I'd like you to opine on. One is the weathering. So if we take a large apartment facility, think about once you see it sheeted and you see the rains come in. Yes, in Arizona we have rain, and we've had, pretty profound monsoon season this year, where I drove by, without mentioning names, I drove by one earlier today, and I was shocked. I'll be honest, I was like, wow, I'm surprised I don't have to rip off 80% of the sheeting, because it's buckling, it's bowed, it's all those kind of things. It's been exposed to a lot of moisture. That's one. And then two is it still true that, let's say, take another multifamily type situation. If you have the non-combustible in your system, sometimes the fire marshal will allow you not to have the fire lane in ahead of time. Have you seen that as part of the part of the pros of the pro forma?
Yes.
I don't think you talked to either of those, Robert.
Yeah, the first of which, what was the first one that you mentioned?
The weathering.
Yeah. So lumber comes from trees, and so the longer that you go out to a job site, and as long as everything's banded, you're great. But you cut a band and let that thing. Well, that lumber all starts to go back to Mother Nature, and it twists, warps, cracks. It's horrible. The other thing that it does is it molds and mildews really easy. I could share a absolute horror story of a project up in Prescott that huge, massive lawsuits because they drywalled cabinets in the whole thing, and there was so much mold and mildew in the building just because it had been rained on so often before it got dried in, and there was some hundreds of thousands of dollars for remediation. Anyway, the other thing is termites absolutely hate light gauge steel, so that's always a plus. Okay, your second question was, or the second point was,
well, a lot of times before you can start a wood frame facility, the entire fire lane and the fire.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So one of the big things, at least in the Arizona market, and especially around Phoenix, we've all seen these what are called in the industry SFR or BTR. So it's single family rental or build to rent neighborhoods. And they're the ones that you see that they look like tiny houses, little houses that are all just jam packed together, and there's hundreds of them in a little tight subdivision. Well, those are in fact single family detached residences that is an apartment building that's single level, that's just spread out much farther than you would if it was and there are some benefits, and it really has been. They've been selling, they've been renting like crazy. But there's a perfect example. you can go out, and I know this is in Phoenix. I don't know about any other municipalities out there, but because it's non-combustible, in a standard wood framed subdivision, you're having to go out and you have to do all your roads. You have to put your fire lanes in. You have to have your hydrants in. All that stuff has to be done before you can start doing anything out, because everything you do is combustible. When you build this same project with light gauge steel, you could literally drive out there with a loader and just scrape the earth and put a slab in and start building things and build roads around them. You can also reduce the amount that needs to be fire sprinkled. If you have any carriage houses or anything like that, that is a 2-story that has a garage underneath, you can eliminate, many times you can eliminate the need for fire sprinklers in them because you're building it non-combustible. So again, you can go, depending on each project, there are things that you can do away with, change, just because it's light gauge steel.
All right, switching gears on you.
Okay.
Again, for entertainment value and kind of the cool factor of Torrey and Forte, tell everyone about the Las Vegas and the theming connection of the people you work with.
Yeah, so that's really the cool part. And we had, I just want to drop this in here. We had today, FrameCAD is the manufacturer of the roll forming equipment that we use, and the software that we use for design. And their executive group, owner, founder, all their C-level people, we had about 6 to 8 of those folks in our office today. And just talking about things that we could do different, better, that we would like to see changed about their equipment, et cetera. And we gave them a tour. And this goes specifically to your question. So Forte, Scott Acton's family and the background, Scott being the CEO, we're theming people, and they have worked for Disney, Universal Studios, for a long, long time, building some of the most prominent pieces in Disneyland and Universal Studios. And by that, I mean not building the rides themselves, but building everything you see when you go to the ride and are going through the ride. And so, it is the geekiest thing in the world to take people into our warehouse and take them for a spin through the shop. We have the largest 3D printer on the West Coast, which we've all seen 3D printers. Now, when I say 3D printer, I'm not talking about the one that many of you have seen that's printing a house out of concrete. That's also a 3D printer. It's very large, but this is what you would think of as a typical 3D printer. Prints with a resin, type material that we utilize for the theming portion and pieces. But that's also one of the things that we do a lot of on the Strip here in Vegas. A lot of the glitz and the real, fancy restaurants all have a lot of themes. Hell's Kitchen, which has been around, it's relatively new. Forte and Torrey were built that. The Gordon Ramsay restaurant. So very, very cool stuff. It is amazing. If you'll go to torreycontractingllc.com and Forte Design Build, I believe it is, you can see some of those things that I'm talking about. Very large projects, pieces that have been shipped to China. Just amazing stuff. But it is such a cool thing to see people's faces and expressions when we walk them through a shop and they get to see some of the things we're working on for Universal Studios and Disney.
And then on the residential side, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but you got Forte, right? It's the rich and famous, so that the quality and the complexity of those homes is that,
Yeah, they look like Steve Wynn of the Wynn Resort and Casino. We built his home, and his home looks very similar to what you would think a casino owner's home would look like. these are very large, 25,000 square foot, plus residences that are mouth drop. I mean, they are just stunning. And yeah, we've been very fortunate. And these people are very exact. They know what they want. They can afford it. They know what they want, and we give it to them. So yeah, good stuff.
Now, and which states are you currently working in?
Well, on the Tory side with the prefab, Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah. If we can get up into Idaho, we'll also do some work in Idaho. I'm going up to St. George, Utah, beautiful place, in a couple of weeks to talk to some folks about a little single family rental community and building it out of steel. So, yeah, all over the place. Any place we can go, Southwest,
Got it.
basically.
So, hey, Daryl, from your perspective, our conversation today, what questions? Because you represent the common folk, which is always nice. What questions would you like to ask either of Robert or myself about either Tory Contracting or Blue Wave General Contracting?
I would say, I guess, thanks for putting me on the spot. First of all, that's amazing.
Well, you're
Love
part
that.
of the team, man.
You got to be ready to go, Daryl, at any moment.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
I would say, this one would go for, I guess, both of you. Is it more important, for what you do to how important are the relationships for the work that you do? Is it like,
Hmm.
is it just business at the end of the day, or are relationships important before you even get to the business? That way, the business is smooth sailing.
Okay, I'll go first. Um, I am a adamant believer in relationship building. I think if you can build that relationship up front, for however long it takes to build it, you're going to have a much better project. Uh, JJ already talked about it with Cole. There's a great example. If you build a good relationship, you can get through anything. I mean, there is nothing that you cannot solve, if you don't if you take the time to build that relationship. What about you, JJ?
Yeah, I was just thinking about every phone call that I get, whether it's a lead from, think about it like an end user, or even meeting you, Robert. Like, let's say you and I were meeting for the first time, and you were a potential trade partner of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So, Daryl, the answer is, at the end of the day, it always starts as a business transaction, because that's how it happens. But it could have come from a relationship prior. So think about the phone calls that either I get, or the emails that I get, or Robert gets. It was probably predicated on something that Tori did or Robert did,
Mm-hmm.
just like it's something that I might have a relationship, one of our team members, a trade partner saying, wow, good things about you. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say it always starts as just a business transaction. But quickly, if you can use the relationship piece as a vetting tool, you can find out in, Robert, what, 35, 40, 30 to 45 seconds. Is this
Yeah.
is this a relationship dialogue, or is it something that's just a transaction? And Daryl, it's so rewarding that in that short time period, you can find out a bunch of things. And if it's going to be a relationship, you can turn it in a matter of seconds.
Some of the best jobs are the ones you don't get.
Exactly.
Because you have that conversation and get that feeling and get that understanding right away, and it's like, boy, it would really be a fun one to do, but yeah, I don't think so.
Or Robert, take that one step further. Of a year later, you get the phone call, or you run into that person. Should have listened to you. You were right.
Yeah, exactly. No, this has been fun. I'm glad we did this. There you go. I'm glad you figured
See?
it out, Daryl. I'm 55 minutes in, and we finally see your mug.
The,
I mean,
the producer finally had the audacity to put some clothes on and get on air.
exactly. He just threw a shirt on. That's all he did. But
No, I do have one last question.
okay, you're the
What?
producer.
So my last question would be, I know, Robert, you haven't been with Tori that long.
Mhm.
But and JJ, you're probably gonna have a lot of different thoughts. But so if you had to sum up your company like with one word, like if you had to describe your company with one word, what will it be?
Wow. Man, you wait all this time to bring that up. I mean, that's like you should probably just start playing the outro. While we're moving our mouth so it looks like we're trying to answer the question. Yeah, I would say Tory.
Oh, just because you learned the definition today doesn't. What did
No, I learned a long time ago, but we know
Listen.
we are the ones that can actually do the technique right.
By the way, for the audience's sake, I just want you to know Robert has found both ends of the internet, and he's no smarter for finding either end. we love you dearly, brother, but
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Quit stalling and answer.
boutique.
Okay, that's actually, man, that's solid. I'm gonna probably just bomb.
That's why I always say boutique, because I think it has an endearing quality to it.
Yeah.
I mean, for us,
my other one would be awesome, but that's kind of goes
well,
without saying.
you probably have a Captain Awesome tattoo somewhere on your
Daryl,
body.
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you had to describe this podcast today with one word, what would it be?
The first word that comes to mind
Dead
is
air.
endearing, but I'm not. That's what
Ooh.
I'm looking for. I would say
Did you say bored?
no.
Endearing, he said.
I'm like, if Karen's listening and he said,
Oh
bored,
man,
I'm gonna file a complaint.
that's awesome. Man, this has really been fun today. Did you have something else to say, Daryl?
Yeah, go ahead, Daryl.
No. I think my one word would be just informative. I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. I learned a lot about JJ today that I didn't know. I actually know more about him now than I ever cared to, but I think he could say the same.
I mean,
Well, I did spend half a day with you at the lodging conference.
Oh my goodness, I talked his ear off. Listen. It was he left and I felt so bad. I was like, man,
good.
I'm sorry.
It was good. I feel like if you ever need a place to crash, we've got a sofa waiting for you.
Yeah, we're kind of there. We're about to that place.
Well, Daryl, are you ready to take us out of here?
I just want to say the last thing. I respect the reason why I use the word informative is because informative. I respect the way that you guys, are I want to say reimagining or making reinventing. That's a good word, but just really putting the knowledge up there about what construction is, and it's more than just a man in a hat working in the sun. So before this show started, that's all I thought about: just a man, hat, sun. There's women. There is construction goes into a multitude of things. So just really appreciate the knowledge that you guys are sharing with the world. Seriously.
That's awesome. On that, take us out of here, Daryl.
Right.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Tory Contracting and Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Robert Johnson and JJ Levinsky on LinkedIn and Instagram. And tune in live every Monday at 3 p.m. as we continue to introduce you to the people building Arizona. Walt Disney said, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality." Until next time, make it a great day.